Hello, YouTubers, and welcome to Level-Headed News. This is your host, Brenda. I have 5 articles in this episode for you. The URLs are in the description of the video for your convenience. All from Natural News. This is I guess you'd call it the health and medical segment of my show. The first article here is called HPV Vaccine on Trial for Its Horrifying Side Effects. Since last July, a total of 119 young girls and women in Japan have filed lawsuits against both the Japanese government and the 2 manufacturers of vaccines for human papillomavirus, called the HPV. Klein, PLC, GKS, it has some parentheses, and Merck Sharp and Dome Corporation. The suits, the company's respective HPV vaccine, Cervarix and Gardasil, caused the women to suffer serious side effects for which they are now seeking damages. The latest suits include 28 cases in which women ranging in age from 15 to 22 developed major health conditions like chronic pain all over their bodies, impaired mobility, severe menstrual pain, and other problems following vaccines. These women are suing not only the vaccine manufacturers for producing the deadly jabs, but also the Japanese government for approving them without prior vetting. By the name of Irina, a 20-year-old college student, told the Japan Times, otherwise known as the JT, that she developed horrible menstrual pains vaccination with Cervarix, which is administered jabs. Sonata went through with her 3rd vaccination despite the menstrual problems, and following course developed pains throughout the rest of her body, for which she now has difficulty walking without a cane and often has to use a wheelchair. As if someone was squashing my internal organs, have only gotten worse, Sonata told a court while sitting in her wheelchair. Sonata is seeking the U.S. equivalent of about $134,000 as compensation for her injuries. I received the shots because the government recommended it. The government to take seriously its responsibility for causing us to suffer from such symptoms. Nearly 3,000 Japanese women have reported side effects from HPV vaccines since they were first recommended. Then, 2 months later, unrecommended. Many others, like Sonata, have suffered similar problems after getting HPV vaccinations, including more than 100 other plaintiffs throughout Japan who say their lives have never been the same since following the government's advice. Rather than obtaining the protection against cervical cancer that they were promised, many of these women are now permanently injured at medical care. Government, GSK, and Merck, there is any causal link between HPV vaccines and serious side effects, hence their effort to have the compensation claims denied. They claim that no scientific evidence exists to show any dangers from HPV vaccines, but tell that to nearly 3,000 women throughout Japan who have reported serious side effects. First started recommending the vaccines back in April of 2013. It stopped recommending HPV vaccines following a controversy from major reported side effects. Labor and Welfare Ministry, some 2,945 individuals have reported side effects from HPV vaccines over the past 4-some-odd years. At the same time, the ministry says that side effects from the vaccines are rare and that the women who claim to have been injured by them by something else. Back in 2016, it was reported that vaccination rates for HPV in Japan plummeted from about 70% to a mere 1% after controversy over the vaccine safety went mainstream around June of 2013. The Japanese public found out that their government was using their tax dollars to support the push for more women to get vaccinated for HPV. The outcry that ensued was enough to get the program stopped in a matter of weeks. Vaccines are still offered to women in Japan, but the government no longer officially recommends them. The next article I have for you farm of the future to produce 20 tons of vegetables a day. And there's a picture of this floating farm in this article if you want to pull it up and take a look at it. And I must say, it is impressive. There is a massive problem threatening mankind's future. It continues to grow at an unprecedented rate, and our food supply is simply not keeping pace. The total number of people on the planet is expected to reach 8.3 billion by 2030. Demand for food will likely have increased by 70%. There is clearly a need for innovative ideas to meet this challenge. Forward-thinking architecture has risen to the occasion. Clean, sustainable energy to produce healthy food, which can be sold directly to consumers, eliminating the need for both storage and delivery, gave birth to the idea of the smart floating farm. The concept popular on a small scale in the form of vertical hydroponic. The smart floating farm takes the idea to a whole new level. Architecture describes floating farm as a new innovative, a new initiative, complementary, compatible with other existing production methods in order to help reduce food risk associated problems in different areas of the globe. Floating farm, for which forward-thinking architecture won a Sustainable Entrepreneurship Award called the SEA in 2016, produced upwards of 8,000 tons of vegetables each year. Floating farms can be anchored to land over the world. Each farm floats on a body of water and consists of 3 tiers. Is the tactics level, which harness clean sources of energy like solar power. In the middle level, using hydroponics. The level which people will be able to visit to learn about the process as well as to buy fresh produce. Finally, the lower level is utilized for aquaculture, which is the production of fish and other species. The smart floating farms come with a slew of benefits, which is the fact that since hydroponics are used, there is no need for the use of chemical pesticides or fertilizers. It's the fact that the multi-level strategy results in a higher yield per meter, freeing up land space for other purposes. It's also greatly reduced since the water used in the process under the platform already. Small floating or smart floating farms, I don't know why I want to call it small. Smart floating farms also allow for the protected year-round growing of a diverse array of plant types. Crops will also not be in peril from droughts, floods, or other natural disasters and can be protected from pests without the use of pesticides. Agriculture runoff will be a thing of the past, and new selling the produce will eliminate the need for machinery, shipping, and storage, while dramatically reducing. Boasting all these advantages, floating farms may well be the future of agriculture, but it may be a while before one reaches an area near you. In the meantime, it's a great idea to become more self-reliant in terms of growing your own fruit and veggies. This will reduce your reliance on others for your family's food supply and will mean that you can reap the health benefits of eating non-GMO, organically grown produce year-round. The next article that I have for you is called Vaccine Safety Commission. 50 studies the AAP failed to send to President Trump. Launched this morning calls themselves Vaccine Safety Commission, a nonprofit organization that was formed by concerned scientists, doctors, journalists, and parents. For now, the group has chosen to remain anonymous, but I certainly hope that changes soon. The group has no formal affiliation to either Robert F. Kennedy or President Trump, but wholeheartedly endorses the foundation of a Vaccine Safety Commission and claims to be actively seeking additional members. In my opinion, we are in the dark ages of having honest conversations about vaccine injury where truth tellers are still routinely destroyed, and I hope this group is another step in the right direction towards honest dialogue. Consider the case just this week of science journalist and Harvard-educated Mish Michaels, the science reporter at WGBH News this week after questions were raised about her anti-vaccine views. Issued a statement. Her personal beliefs have been positioned inaccurately. At issue are comments Michaels made before the Massachusetts legislature in 2011 on behalf of a bill to add parental choice to the list of reasons children without immunizations may attend school. Currently, children who aren't immunized may only attend school if they have documentation from a doctor or if a parent submits a written statement declaring that immunization conflicts with their religious beliefs. A group of doctors are going public. A group called Physicians for Informed Consent in California, speaking up about the importance of keeping vaccines as a voluntary medical procedure. Trump's desire to look more closely at vaccine safety, I was emboldened by an excellent editorial last week, medical journal by the associate editor, Dr. Peter Doshi, should really be read by everyone. It doesn't matter if the vast majority of doctors or scientists agreed on something, but medical journalists should be among the first to realize that while evidence matters, the legitimate concerns of patients. And if patients have concerns, doubts, or suspicions, for example, about the safety of vaccines, this does not mean they are anti-vaccine. Patients certainly exist in the world, but approaches anybody and everybody who raises questions about the right-headedness of current vaccine policies, myself included, as anti-vaccine fail on several accounts. First, characterize the nature of the concern. Many parents of children with developmental disorders who question, and the page jumped, hang on. There we go. Who question the role of vaccines have their children vaccinated. Is an ideology of their children vaccinated seem unlikely candidates for the title. Secondly, they lump all the vaccines together as if the decision about the risks and benefits in the same irrespective of disease, polio, smallpox, mumps, diphtheria, influenza, HPV, vaccine or Japanese or vaccine type live attenuated, inactivated, whole cell, high dose, low dose, adjuvated, polyvalent, etc. This seems about as intelligent as categorizing people who into pro-drug and anti-drug camps, depending on whether they have ever voiced concern over the potential side effects of any drug. People concerned about the safety of vaccines as anti-vaccine risk entrenching positions. The label or its derogatory derivative, anti-vaxxer, is a form of attack. It's mere act or even asking an open question about what is known and unknown about the safety of vaccines. Fourthly, the label too quickly assumes that there are two sides to every question and that the two sides are polar opposites. This "you're either with us or against us" thinking is unfit for medicine. Many parents who decisions regarding their children's health ultimately make decisions such as to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. Uncertainty about whether they are right. When given a choice, some say yes to and no to others. These parents are not zealots. They are decision makers navigating the gray, acting under conditions of uncertainty or flux. On February the 7th of 2017, the American Academy of Pediatrics sent a letter to President Trump protesting the establishment of a vaccine safety commission and included a list of 41 publishing studies he believed to prove that vaccines are safe and effective and couldn't possibly be causing American children any harm whatsoever, as they state in their letter. That, quote, vaccines are unsafe when administered according to expert recommendations that have been disproven by a robust body of medical literature. find interesting about the AA words is that they often seem to be mixing up their words when it comes to vaccine safety. On one hand, they're simply unsupported, like expressing their unequivocal support for safety of vaccines. Unequivocal support. I can't even say it. Does that mean what harm is simply worth it, or that absolutely no harm is ever caused? By engaging in generalized hyperbole, the AAP makes it hard to have an honest conversation about the risks versus the benefits of vaccine. In certain ways, I think the AAP's letter is laughable. The AAP claim vaccines are safe. They include only address one very specific condition, autism. Body of evidence related to the aluminum adjuvant in vaccines to be chronic food allergies our children are experiencing. Never mentioned that. What about the new HPV vaccine with an alarming rate of adverse events reported? What about the data showing that children receive multiple vaccines have much higher rates of emergency room visits? Are vaccines safe so long as they don't cause autism, or does safety mean something much broader? My personal opinion about this whole mess is that we've traded a reduction in certain acute illnesses like measles and chickenpox for an explosion in many chronic illnesses, particularly neurological and autoimmune disorders, are now epidemic in our children. Let me ask you a simple question to test my hypothesis. In the ages of 4 and 15, do you know a single classmate of theirs who doesn't have one or more of the following conditions? Autism, ADHD, asthma, anaphylactic food allergies, diabetes, a learning disability, or a sensory processing disorder. A chart here in this article called Vaccine Doses for U.S. Children. And in 1962, there were 5 doses for polio, smallpox, and DTP. In 1983, later, 24 doses, and those included DTP, OPV, DTP, OPV. Now, and this is over the course of time from the time that they're 2 months old until they're 15. I'm going over these. Okay, we'll start again. DTP, OPV, DTP, OPV, DPP, or DTP, OPV, OPV. Okay, that's 24 doses of all of that. And then let's see, that would be 30 years, 33 years. It's a total of 72 doses. I'm going to read all this. I mean, there's 2 big old long columns of all the stuff that they're giving them. Influenza's in there, rotavirus is in there, meningococcal, varicella, Hep A, stuff in there. Now, I'm going to interject here. When I was a kid, I got the 3 doses only give. So I had 3 different kinds of measles. I had the mumps and I had the chicken pox. Through all 3 of them, system. I was sick for a week or so with each one of those and moved on and built the immunity in my system. But those were the only shots that I ever got for any of that kind of stuff. My goodness, I can't believe 72 doses. Everything's screwed up. Well, I'll go on with this article. It says, what's wrong with our kids? Why are they so sick? And why isn't a massive uptick in the number of vaccines given a reasonable hypothesis for what's happened? I like this blog post yesterday from the author, journalist, and nutritionist Catherine J. Frompovich, where she asked many of these questions. The operation found strong evidence vaccines cause Guillain-Barré syndrome, or GBS, melangia meningitis, encephalitis, and other adverse health problems. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Esquire, is revealing more and more research almost daily, this time from the Yale School of Medicine and Penn State College of Medicine, about an association between vaccines and brain disorders. All this tap dancing about. Let's go. Let's get to some serious conclusions, she says. That makes a lot of noise. So too are vaccine studies peripherally pointing to real vaccine concerns about which the U.S. federal health agencies, HHS, CDC, and FDA, and state health departments probably won't do anything to correct, eliminate vaccines as some countries are doing with some vaccines. The ever-increasing, growing like topsy CDC vaccine schedule has to stop. With almost 300 new vaccines in production, how many will infants, toddlers, and teens be mandated to receive when those vaccines obtain licensure? Furthermore, aren't vaccines Big Pharma's annuity products, so what should consumers expect? The American Academy of Pediatrics is a trade union for pediatricians. Pediatricians make most of their income from vaccinating babies. They are encouraging President Trump not to vaccine safer, even though our government has paid out more than $3.5 billion to Americans to compensate them for vaccine injury. Something isn't adding up. I already mentioned the science the AAP sent President Trump deals exclusively with the subject of whether or not vaccines cause autism. Oddly, they sent the president several papers authored by a whistleblower scientist at CDC who has confessed to throwing away data implicating the MMR vaccine in autism, and a paper that clearly explained that vaccines were causing neurological tics. I don't think that's safe. Here's the Vaccine Safety Commission slides addressing these three studies. CDC whistleblower and Paul Thorne, wanted felon, are actually co-authors to many of the studies the AAP sent President Trump. And the slides are in this if you want to pull them up and take a look at all this. My favorite part of the Vaccine Study Commission website are the 50 studies they provide that AAP forgot in a letter to President Trump. Note the complete study is available by clicking on each study title and with every study in one place. If you want to click on that in this article, it'll take you there and you can look at that. I hope you enjoy reading these studies from all over the world, and I hope they make you think or say the thing I keep thinking and saying. Or who wouldn't want safer vaccines? Number one, Yale scientists find strong association between vaccines, OCD, and anxiety disorder. Of certain psychiatric disorders following vaccine of children and adolescents, a pilot case control study was from January of 2017, just here a couple months ago. The summary on it says subjects with newly diagnosed anorexia nervosa were more likely than to have had any vaccination in the previous 3 months. Hazard ratio 95%. Confidence interval 1.21 to 2.68. Influenza vaccinations during the prior 3, 6, and 12 months with incidence diagnosis OCD and anxiety disorder. Several other associations were also significant with HRs greater than 1.4. Hepatitis A with OCD and AN, hepatitis B with AN, and meningitis with AN, and chronic. This pilot epidemiology analysis implies that the onset of some neuropsych disorders may be temporarily related to prior vaccinations in a subset of individuals. Summaries on these, but I'll give you the high points here. If you want to read the summaries, you can pull up the article. Number two is Italian scientists find unexpected contaminants in all pediatric vaccines, including lead, stainless steel, iron, and chromium. Israeli and Italian scientists warn that vaccine adjuvants, aluminum, are causing a wide range of autoimmune conditions, including Sjogren's, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, Sjogren's syndrome, something like that. Number 4 is infants vaccinated with multiple vaccines at once have much higher hospitalizations and death rates than infants who receive fewer simultaneous vaccines. Number 5, Israeli, Canadian, and Colombian scientists show that Gardasil vaccine triggers brain inflammation and autoimmunity in mice. So, if you want to read the summaries on all those, you can pull it up and take a look at it. But wow, I mean, obviously that stuff needs serious consideration before they put it out there and start jabbing people with it. Have here wellness. Health, cannabis is the new buzzword. Try this. All natural remedy has been around for thousands of years. Scientists about its many different uses, including the impact it has on human health. So far, research has taught us that cannabis may be effective for combating cancer, reducing and or managing pain and inflammation, and treating neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's. Very well have more health benefits than any man-made or natural substance found on Earth. The reason the plant is so effective as medicine in humans because it interacts with a psychological system called cannabinoid system, or ECS, which is a complex network of receptors that act like dimmer switch to all other activity in the body, explains the collective evolution. Hemp is also known to help support good health. CBD oils made from hemp are growing in popularity, but they aren't all created equal and can vary widely. The Health Ranger's very own CWC Labs has launched independent testing for CBD oil to ensure that your product is authentic, naturally built to interact with cannabis. This means when there is too much or too little activity going on somewhere, the ECS kicks in and brings it back. Our bodies are filled with ECS receptors that are perfect fit for both our own natural chemicals called endocannabinoids and also for ones coming from plants such as cannabis. Human exposure to plant cannabinoids balance our ECS when it becomes weakened, reducing the risk. These ailments are often caused by inflammation in the body. Research shows that chronic inflammation leads to all sorts of health problems, including autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis, heart disease, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. When our bodies are exposed to cannabis, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, cytokinase, I don't know, that cause inflammation are reduced. Whatever it is, it reduces these things. Fatty acid, I don't know, 75-cent word, amino hydrolase, an enzyme that destroys the body's natural anti-inflammatory anhydamide, which in turn alleviates inflammation. In addition to relieving inflammation, cannabis also acts as a powerful antioxidant, constantly subjected to environmental factors that induce oxidative stress, resulting in free radicals that may disrupt important cellular process. This may result in a variety of health conditions such as heart disease, cancer, early aging, degenerative disorders. Introducing cannabis into the body may therefore eliminate or even prevent the onset of ailments caused by oxidative stress. And other hard to explain diseases by deficient ECS. Some theorize that natural plant may be capable of preventing and curing mysterious diseases. Russo suggests that illnesses like irritable bowel syndrome, fibromyalgia, and migraines could be the result of deficient ECS. If you don't have enough or endocannabinoids, you have pain where there shouldn't be pain, meaning nauseated. You would have lowered seizure threshold, and just a whole litany of other problems, Russo said. Responsible for regulation of all sorts of daily processes that take place within the human body. Human body achieve homeostasis. Yes, is vital for homeostasis. The stable functioning of all our psychological process, including appetite, sensitivity to pain, emotions, bone growth, fertility, and so much more, reported Greenflower. Interestingly, the human body actually produces its own supply of cannabinoids or endocannabinoids. However, as Greenflower explains, it's often not enough to keep the ECS functioning. We are finding that endocannabinoid deficiencies are the root of many types of illness. This is where cannabis comes in. The major cannabinoids in this plant work in concert with ECS to promote that we depend on to thrive. Furthermore, cannabis intake in humans is known to reduce mental disorders such as anxiety, as well as promoting youthful skin and healthy joints, regulating blood sugar levels, fighting cancer, strengthening bones, and improving brain health. The article that we have here is of Natural News, statement from the Health Ranger. Of being blacklisted by Google, the naturalnews.com website has been restored to Google's search results. The action by Google follows the largest and most vocal backlash against Google's delisting of any website in the history of the company, and it has sparked many new discussions and debates about search engine censorship and free speech. Natural News, as well as our many millions of fans, are grateful for Google's decision to restore the naturalnews.com website, but we are also deeply troubled by the unjustified blacklisting of Natural News and what it means across the net. For the record, there was never any allegation or evidence that Natural News had intentionally violated Google's webmaster guidelines. We were being flagged for so-called sneaky mobile redirect number of pages in a subdomain .com, which were created by outside bloggers. Google went to extraordinary steps of banning the entire naturalnews.com root domain and all its subdomains, a step that would never have been applied to CNN, Huffington Post, or other popular news websites. In fact, a Natural News investigation showed that violations identified sites like Forbes and CNN did not result in the same kind of blacklisting that was applied to Natural News. Furthermore, while Google did make an effort to provide us with one URL that they said flagged this mobile redirect, a single SEO expert or engineer who could reproduce the supposed redirect issue. Even more disturbingly, when we went to Google Product Webmaster Forum to ask for help identifying the issue, we were insulted, mocked, and accused of lying by Google supporters who behaved like a pack of jackals rather than professionals. No evidence, no charges, because they say they are. Through this entire process, Natural News was constantly being called a liar for failing to remove something that Google flatly refused to identify. In essence, we were charged with a crime by Google to provide any details of the crime, nor any tool whereby we could reproduce Google's claimed redirect. The process extremely frustrating for webmasters is an understatement. I continue to believe that Natural News was targeted by Google due to the content of our speech, which supports President Trump, and that's the sneaky mobile redirect issue was merely the justification used by Google to delist the entire Natural News website. Disagrees with this assessment and says it was just a technical issue, yet we are not aware of any other situation in which minor technical issue on a subdomain blacklisting an entire root domain with 140,000 plus pages of quality content. Natural News appears to be the only website of its size that has ever been subjected to this extreme censorship issue on pages posted years ago by bloggers on a subdomain. The record, there is absolutely no evidence or even any accusation of natural news deliberately engaging in any black hat SEO techniques or malicious linking strategies or any other tricks that might be used by unscrupulous spammers. Natural news focuses on quality content and well-constructed titles, leaving the ranking algorithms up to Google. Content is obviously controversial. Telling the truth is always a revolutionary act in an era of great deceit. Interest to millions of readers and produced with the intention of helping humanity. Timeless principles that drive the natural news mission on a link you can click here in this article. Censor is the power to destroy, because Google is such an integral part of the internet ecosystem, influence determining website traffic, e-commerce, product sales, and online reputations. Google's power to censor is the power to destroy. Google can destroy an entire family business, the business model of an online store, or the reputation of a truly good person. Argue at this very moment that Google is a private company, do whatever it wants without justifying anything. And arguing for this, they are supporting a totalitarian monopoly that has the power to destroy without cause or justification. Yet we live in a society where the entire media and popular culture was outraged when a bakery in Oregon said it would not bake a cake for a lesbian couple. Demanded the bakery be vilified for refusing to provide services to that customer, and it was later fined $135,000 by the state of Oregon for causing emotional damage to the plaintiffs. Clearly, in that case, society said that the bakery did not have the right to blacklist a lesbian couple, yet many of the same leftists who decried are now saying Google has the right to blacklist natural news. Is that the only is that only allowable in their minds because I'm not gay? News had been run by a transgender. The outrage against Google across the LGBT community if Google had blacklisted a popular news website would be deafening. Google proceeded with blacklisting natural news precisely because I'm not gay, I'm not transgender, and I'm not liberal. Discriminated against, I believe, because we are not part of the protected classes of citizens in the progressive worldview where Google operates. For example, that Google's top executives, such as Eric Schmidt, were working directly with the campaign which natural news opposed, and fully documented by WikiLeaks. Been a pro-Clinton progressive website, I believe a minor technical glitch on some subdomain blog pages from years ago would have been given a pass. After all, the final decision to blacklist Google was a human decision, action by Google. And Google decided to penalize natural news for something that was not flagged by any Google algorithm. Like Google, Facebook, Twitter, and other internet giants. Position of Google in the marketplace, Google must be prevented from granting special protections to certain progressive websites, such as the Huffington Post, while targeting conservative websites for extreme punitive action. Not strictly conservative, but we do support President Trump. However, we are also pro-environmental protection and even announced a lab services to Native American communities to test their water for possible contamination by oil pipeline leaks and spills. A process must be put in place to produce the evidence they claim to have against a website and provide at minimum 3 working days to resolve the named issues. Google has an obligation to tell websites why they are about to be blacklisted and provide a reasonable means of recourse so that the webmaster can take steps to comply with Google's ever-changing, mysterious black box rules. Furthermore, Google must be required to apply its relevancy algorithms fairly across the sites without signaling out certain publishers for special penalties against humans who simply disagree with the content of a particular site. I believe that given Google's monopoly position of dominance over the internet ecosystem, it's time for Congress to pass a law that would apply these regulations to Google's operations to prevent politically motivated censorship. call it the Online Speech Protection Act. It would not prevent Google from blacklisting websites that truly abuse dark hat SEO tactics, but it would require that Google provide advance notice, produce evidence against the site, and provide a reasonable means by which webmasters could resolve the issue in question, especially for those websites that are obviously attempting to comply with Google's rules, admit are almost impossible to navigate. How Google enables hate speech against very websites it's censoring. It was being censored by Google. We were also being assaulted and called liars by the same left-wing media that routinely attacks Donald Trump. Natural News, Google empowered a massive wave of defamation articles that deliberately sought to exploit the absence of natural news in the rankings to spread knowingly false lies and hatred about natural news, and myself in particular. Google just enabled one of the most vile hate campaigns ever witnessed on the net, all while denying Natural News any ability to defend itself against such hate-based smears and malicious lies. Electronic equivalent of binding your hands, slapping duct tape over your mouth, and throwing you to the lions. All this from a company that once claimed to do no evil. In effect, then allowed others to smear us, then hosted a webmaster forum which attacked us and called us liars, then refused to provide us with any evidence of wrongdoing, all while silencing our ability to defend ourselves in the public space. Mind that none of this would have ever happened if Natural News had been a Clinton-supporting website. There's no question in my mind that Natural News was discriminated against because we were a convenient political target as part of an elaborate smear campaign to drag our reputation through the mud. Visitors and harm our revenue-generating traffic as a form of economic sabotage. Google has now become weaponized search engine of the censorship and hate. Politically biased operators who are so filled with anger at Trump's victory that they justify blacklisting entire website they don't like. Progressive left is even filled with students, UC Berkeley, argue for their right to murder people whose speech they don't like. Intolerant leftists right now using their power of censorship to silence websites they hate. Google makes sure power to blacklist websites is not abused inside Google itself. The political left has group as a hate group, they alone have unique right to censor others, even to violently attack and murder others whose speech they don't like. Evident everywhere throughout leftist culture, Hollywood, and the Oscars, clearly being run by leftists, and Facebook run by leftists, and most of the internet gatekeepers dominated by intolerant leftists. Or the shocking realization is that none of us are safe from the hatred, intolerance, and censorship of the techno-liberals. The end justifies the means to silence Trump supporters and defame those who support Trump. First they came for me. Will Google come for you next? Sad era of for America, a sad era for the internet, and a sad realization of what Google has come to, because Google has not taken any actions to state they won't repeat the same censorship again at any time without notice. Search right now that we are all at the mercy of Google, of truth, which can condemn you without explanation, silence you without producing a shred of evidence, and arrange and defamed without recourse. While Natural News had a large enough audience to initiate a widespread backlash of outrage against Google, the sad truth is that most websites are too small to mount any sort of effective defense against the ministry of Google. But important voices are silenced by Google for political reasons. Who will speak for them? Who will speak up for the minority of voices that are diversity of public debate and dialogue in a free society? It has the right to blacklist any site at any time for any reason without explanation, and that it can be decided by a human being at Google. a left-leaning organization that no doubt employs a large number of intolerant, biased leftists free speech while actively seeking to silence those. Is this really acceptable in a free society? Now have to calculate their odds of being delisted by Google with every new article they publish that doesn't celebrate the twisted narratives of the political left. Do any of us have that Google won't target us on any given day for whatever reason and silence us forever? Run, Google is a danger to free expression and an enabler of hate speech. Smack of the kind of totalitarian rule we've seen before throughout history under cruel, genocidal rulers like Mao and Stalin. Selectively suppressed by a monopolistic, politically connected entity that sees itself as the sole arbitrator of allowable in society. We are already on the path toward info totalitarianism, and the outcome can only be less freedom and more human suffering, as history has proven again and again without fail. Google must be subjected to reasonable regulations that protect the rights of citizens to engage in free speech in a free society. We must not let Google march us down the path of totalitarianism and the silencing of dissent. Will pursue reasonable regulations against Google, Facebook, and Twitter that will rein in their monopolistic practices and discriminatory censorship that harms America and suppresses human freedom. We've launched a new site to cover censorship on the internet, and you can visit censorship.news to stay informed. For you in this episode, if you like what I'm doing here, give it a thumbs up. Share it on your social media so everybody gets to hear the news. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Stay informed.